Alligator Alcatraz.
It's Alligator Alcatraz.
Alligator Alcatraz.
Alligator Alcatraz.
Alligator Alcatraz.
What is Alligator Alcatraz, and how does it have all of the essential elements of the Fox formula? Welcome to Sanity, everyone, with Dave Briggs and Allison Camerata, two former Fox hosts. And today, Dave, I thought we would basically give an anatomy of Alligator Alcatraz and how it fits the formula that we know so well. So please, everybody, subscribe to Sanity. Remember to like this. Thank you very much.
Let me just tell you my quick experience with the Alligator Alcatraz. When the Elon Musk, Donald Trump feud reignited, we're talking about the world's richest man and the world's most powerful man. I tuned to Fox because I wanted to hear their take on it. And I kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and it never came, Allison. They totally ignored what might be the most intriguing story on the planet for obvious reasons, but boy, did they hammer home Alligator Alcatraz. And I do want to hear your essential elements, but here's what the Florida Attorney General says about it, because this is his brainchild, and it's almost like he's a Fox News producer. He knew how to speak their language.
Alligator Alcatraz. This 30 square mile area is completely surrounded by the Everglades. Presents a efficient, low-cost opportunity to build a temporary detention facility because you don't need to invest that much in the perimeter. If people get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide.
That is not my music.
You did not add that music. He has a music bed of horror that he's added, basically.
But he's brilliant in that I believe this was all for Fox News. He knew what you're about to tell the audience, which is the essential ingredients of the Fox formula. I can't wait to hear it.
Okay, here they are. Here are the three hallmarks of the Fox formula that I think Alligator Alcatraz captures. Number one, a catchy title, okay? Something also a little exotic sounding. And what this does for Fox viewers, it allows them to feel like they're in the know about a complicated topic, but with a catchphrase, okay? So, in other words, like Benghazi, Ground Zero, Mosque, War on Christmas, okay? Number two, ignite the horror center of your brain or the outrage center of your brain. So, War on Christmas, Benghazi, that sounds scary. Ground Zero Mosque or Alligator Alcatraz, that conjures up something scary, something horror. Immediately your brain is ignited. Number three, have enough angles, have the story have enough angles that Fox can hammer it home every single hour without ever getting to any substance. So without ever getting to any of the critical thinking analysis that would actually be required for something like comprehensive immigration reform or how we're going to give migrants due process. You don't have to do that because you can just say pythons, alligators, Everglades.
It's amazing. And I laugh because you put me back on the curvy couch when I remember producers telling me in my ear, continue to hammer that signature phrase. And this one does, to your point, have all the essential elements. It takes me back to your point, Ground Zero Mosque, War on Christmas, Hillary's emails, Obama's birth certificate. And I remember leaving Fox in the midst of the Benghazi scandal, not in the midst of it. I was like 2 years deep into it. And it went on a year after I left because it had all the essential elements. And then when, Pete Hegseth does something 10 times worse, it barely made Fox News.
Well, that's the other thing that I think is that you point out, that is a great hallmark. I might have to add a fourth, which is have this be so catchy, Alligator Alcatraz, that it can eclipse other real stories, other real news, whatever Pete Hegseth is really doing, or what is happening with the feud with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Like, have this just be something that is so catchy, other news goes away.
It was like Obama playing golf, which really resonated with the audience. But yet, when President Trump blows away, there was a counter for how many times Obama played golf. You remember this. And then Trump blew those numbers away. So, needless to say, that is not a story. And the fear here is really the key, because President Trump says this facility will handle the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. He adds, we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator if they escape prison. And here is one of my favorite movie villains. He's kind of a combination of Lord Vader and Hannibal Lecter and Voldemort. You know him as Stephen Miller. Here's how he describes it to Laura Ingraham.
What's dehumanizing is when American citizens are stripped of their rights and their liberties by the invasion of illegal aliens. What is dehumanizing is when Democrats let illegal alien rapists into the country to attack our children. That is dehumanizing. What reclaims our humanity is when we get these monsters off the street and we put them where they can't hurt anybody. And when they see the consequences for their conduct, they will begin and they will continue to self-deport and get back home to avoid what President Trump is going to deliver.
Well,
does anybody speak the Fox language better than Lord Vader, Voldemort, Stephen Miller?
well, no, but it also is just here again, that hits number 2 that I was talking about, the Fox formula of hit the outrage center, hit the anger, the horror center. And what he's saying is just so demonstrably untrue. Border crossings are down. President Trump said in the past week that maybe some American-born people would end up in Alligator Alcatraz. Steve Miller is not mentioning that. This is the worst of the worst. We're not sure of that. They haven't been given due process. They haven't been adjudicated. I mean, nothing he's saying is true. It's all just like scary headline gobbledygook. But Dave, just before we get to that, okay, so I do want to talk about the substance, because this is something that Fox doesn't do, okay? And so I do want to talk about the substance. But before we get to that, I too went on a deep dive down a rabbit hole, a Fox rabbit hole, because I have, we would have these rundowns that we would prepare for our weekend show. And I have them because they would send them to us. And I have a million actually of yours. I have a million of us when we were together. Here's one that you had to do. It was a Dave solo at 8:50 in the F block. You had to interview a New Hampshire man who was fighting to display Bible passages along the side of the road. It was the war on Christmas, but this was September. You started the war on Christmas early that year because it was September, but there was outrage. We were outraged because he wasn't allowed to display Bible passages. Now, mind you, here again, let me just give you the Fox formula. This, I'm sure, was handled 2 days later by like the selectmen. Okay, of his small New Hampshire town. This is something easily managed, okay? Could you put the Bible passages in your driveway or in your backyard or whatever? It's easily managed. But Fox turns it into a war on Christmas.
And, that's such a good point, Allison, because they can take a minuscule story that literally impacts nobody, maybe a dozen people in the corner of Nebraska, and make it a national issue. And as much as I laugh, like, it is somehow a brilliant formula. No one did it better than Tucker Carlson. Take a story that literally impacted nobody and make it a national issue. And nothing personifies this probably better than the transgender sports issue, because while I agree, I don't want Leah Thomas swimming against my daughter. I actually agree with them, but it impacts about 12 cases nationally. And somehow it became a national issue in the election, courtesy Fox News.
That's a great point. And I would put Alligator Alcatraz into this same category. We don't know how many people are there. We don't know how many people are the worst of the worst. I mean, as we know from statistics for decades, migrants generally commit crime at a much lower rate than, natural born U.S. Americans. And so none of this is backed up by real, but it's also, this is another point that I wanted to make, Dave. It's never about problem solving. It's never about solutions. It's never about how do we fix this. It's about drumming up the outrage. And the longer the outrage lasts, mosque at ground zero for a year, Benghazi for 3 years, the longer the ratings, can churn.
Can you go back to the rundowns? Do you have any other beauties for me before I address the substance?
I mean, seriously, you need to come over because we need to do this in have an actual party drinking game around it. It's just so good. I mean,
okay. While you look it over,
here's one. Rahm Emanuel lives for the last 5 years in a rent-free DC apartment. His landlord is one of his advisors. It's like, that was a conflict of interest. That was a conflict of interest that you and I and Clayton, had to hammer home compared to what is happening.
That
right
was a
now
conflict of interest that we had to hammer.
Absolutely.
The president has made an estimated $600 million selling digital currency, most of which basically sells direct access to the White House.
Absolutely. Donald Trump's family is cashing in a million ways to Sunday. Fox News isn't talking about that. Rahm Emanuel is renting an apartment from one of his advisors. That was in the A block.
Another one that I remember was hammering Obama for bowing to the Saudi king or bowing to the Japanese prime minister. The president literally might be in bed with the Saudis at the moment. He does a $2 billion deal with the UAE. He does future Trump Plaza hotel deals with the Saudis. No big deal. But obeying local customs, that fit the outrage fest. So I do want to get to a little bit of the substance because Rafael Almeida covers Florida news for the last 25 years. He is a senior journalist at the Sun Sentinel, and he doesn't delve into politics at all. He just wanted to address the worst of the worst, which is what Stephen Miller and President Trump says about Alligator Alcatraz.
No matter what you say about them, they're not all MS-13. They are not all rapists. They are not all drug dealers. Some of them are just here to do work and send money back home. Yeah. And in fact, they pay, because of how they do things, they pay Social Security taxes. They pay taxes. They pay payroll taxes on their behalf. These people never see that money.
And the strange thing is, he's spot on there. President Trump actually deserves credit for tightening and closing the border. But instead of getting that, he does dehumanizing political theater like this that actually denies him credit for an accomplishment.
I hear you, Dave, and I think that that's a very good point. But I also thought that what struck me that Raphael said was the dehumanizing nature of Alligator Alley. As you know, Alligator Alcatraz, it was constructed in 8 days, which is another tell that it's not really for real, that it's a lot of sort of just this Hollywood backdrop sort of thing. But when he described what it looks like inside and what the prisoners would have to endure, that stuck with me.
Okay, let's listen.
I'm seeing all of these chain link, we have to call them what they are. They're cages. All these cages with I mean, I call them cells in our reporting, but it's a cage. And each one has dozens of bunk beds very close together. And what kind of got my attention as soon as I saw it was you would have these rows and rows of bunk beds, and at the far end of these rows and rows of bunk beds are 3 toilets exposed for everyone to see. So, the idea that you have any level of privacy while using the bathroom is, no, I'm sorry, you get nothing. Everybody will see you doing it, and everybody will smell you doing it. It's just, there's no wall, there's no nothing.
It doesn't have to be that way. That's not how you have to have detention centers. That's for drumming up outrage. That's for your base. That's for red meat. That's not how we treat unadjudicated people. That's not even how we treat prisoners who have been convicted for life. That's not how we treat people in this country.
It's not. It's truly the worst of the worst. If I've been to maximum security prisons, and that's actually worse than those conditions. Now, if we're talking about murderers and rapists and MS-13, I have little sympathy for their conditions, but that won't be the case, as Raphael pointed out to us. Those people are already in maximum security prisons. This will likely be men and women who are trying to earn a living and trying to pay for their life, send some money back home. And businesses all over to Florida have said, we can't operate. We may have to close down because most of their hardworking employees have disappeared. It's also right in the middle of Hurricane Alley, not just Alligator Alcatraz. Hurricanes blow through here all the time. And on top of it, when asked to describe the conditions in Florida in the middle of the summer, Raphael said, well, it's basically hot soup. There's only two conditions: blazing sun or torrential rain. So this doesn't make sense on a lot of levels.
But also, I would just say that in terms of having sympathy for the people who may or may not have committed a crime, it's not about them. To me, it's not about them, really. It's about us and our bedrock principles and what we believe in. And do we want to treat people humanely? Do we believe as Americans in treating people humanely? Of course, holding them responsible, adjudicating them. But do we believe in human rights and dignity or not? And so it's just, it flies in the face. And the fact that Stephen Miller, in that soundbite that you played, describes it with such relish, and that he describes, which is not true, some of the things that he said with such delight, is another tell. It's just very telling that they are going for cruelty over actual justice.
And as we wrap this up, it's really just amazing to see how in sync the Florida AG is with the Trump administration, with Fox News. Like, it really is. They are right in sync with one another, to the point that, again, I'm guessing the Florida AG knew exactly what he was doing with that music, the animation, and the title Alligator Alcatraz.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Play well
yeah.
with Fox, and he knew it would play well with the Trump administration, and they are all in sync at the moment.
I wouldn't be surprised if he had some sort of producer's back channel help, number one. And I also wouldn't be surprised if his next job is an on-air host.
Without question. So we want to know from you. Please subscribe. Please like. Are there other stories that you remember from Fox that fit Allison's three essential elements of the Fox formula? We'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe. Please like. Any final comments before we wrap it up?
Have a great 4th. Remember what America stands for.
Well said.